Locked in the bunker, shadows shake. One man clapping secrets awake. Board games living, dice they break. Echoes pounding, hearts they quake. In the bunker, board games rolling. One man clapping, stories growing. Hard rock thunder, speakers blowing. Clapping loud.
Welcome to the sound of one man clapping. I am the one man. If you've been following along with the kids at home, you know I have been knocked flat by a tiny piece of cartilage upon which my entire existence hinges. And thanks to that tiny bouncy tissue failing in its one and only goddamn job, I am unable to live like a normal human being, left only to haunt the local bell tower and terrify the locals. True story. This is a podcast about board gaming culture, and growing old gracelessly. Today we're going to look at the game I played over the last week. Spoiler alert, that is not a grammatical error. It is a short mother flipping list this week, and my thoughts on that game are forthcoming. We're going to go through all the fear with FOMOMOFO, and in our newly renamed main segment, Voices in My Head, I'm talking all the gaming things that piss me off today. It's my favorite things, but it's opposite. Day, saddle up. This episode is not PG. Note there is no incoming for exclamation marks segment this week, as I've still to unbox everything that arrived last week and came home from PAX. We'll be back to our full format next week with all of our segments in all their unbridled, resplendent glory. But for today, it's a slightly shorter roster. This week is the angry episode, and fair warning, it's going to get a little more sweary than usual. I am sorry, but also not sorry. You've been warned. I tried ticking the E for explicit box twice, but it wouldn't let me. Turns out that just unticks the E box, which is not a good thing for the algorithm. Now on to my favorite part of the show, the game that were. Sweet baby jeebus, I cannot remember a drier week. Even the week after the Peanut was born had more action than this. But you remember last week? Last week, the massive, in quotes, week for games. Well, it shouldn't even be in quotes. It was a massive bloody week for games. Well, this week is literally the antithesis of that. I got one. Count 'em clappers, one game in. Now, this is obviously driven by my inability to sit upright in a chair. I am in a chair again today. It's a happy place to be. I'm able to drive a car again, walk up and down stairs. We celebrate the little things on OMC. But this week, I got one game in. This is not for the lack of desire. And not for the lack of all things holy. It was not for the lack of time. Time is something I have had plenty of. And thanks to that little disc between L5 and S1, I've had plenty of time staring at the ceiling, catching up on all my B grade and C grade TV lists that have been sitting there malingering away when I'm time poor. And unfortunately, there are not many board games that survive being played literally in bed. You shift one cheek to vent some gas, and the board state is Farquad. I tried Buttons and Bugs, great little game. Those tiny tokens do not stand a chance. There's literally nothing holding them in place other than good wishes and prayer. So it was tough. But I managed late in the week to drag my butt downstairs. The Peanut said, "Hey, Dad, let's give it a go." She managed to get me down the stairs to the bunker. And she and I got in a couple of games of Lorcana. This week's only game that was. Lorcana, if you know nothing about it, which I doubt that very, very much, but maybe if you have had the pleasure of playing, it's literally Magic Light, like Magic the Gathering Light. Very light, mind you. It's kind of like Magic 1994 Light, even, which I think is great. You've got a set deck of cards. It's a deck builder, or it's a TCG. You can go and open as many magical packs of cards if you like, but I just bought 2 starter decks, one for the Peanut, one for myself. They're pre-built, ready to roll. Lorcana is excellent. From a gameplay point of view, you've got a choice. You've got cards in your hand and you can play them face down, and they add ink in Lorcana, which is equivalent to your mana or your lands in Magic, and you can exhaust them. You can't say tap. Wizards of the Coast, hashtag Hasbro, own the rights to that specific mechanic name, but you can twist them sideways, you get a little bit of power, and you can bring more cards out onto the table. There's only about 5 different kinds of cards. I think there's only about 6 keywords, but there's enough variety in there that the game's quite interesting. You know, and rather than trying to hammer your opponent down to zero health, what you're trying to do is you're trying to build your stock of lore. I think it's lore, some little magical diamonds. I think it's called lore. You're trying to get to 20 lore. It's a little thing, but instead of winding someone down, you're trying to build yourself up to win. And I like that messaging when we're playing. I will say that our first game came with a little bit of coaching. while she gets her head around every card, because every card you do have is different and it's got its own text. And your cards do interplay with your opponents, and trying to keep an eye on the state of the table. It's a little bit of juggling for her almost 10-year-old burgeoning gaming brain. But man, she loved it. The art is so good. The art's really, really good. And it looks great on the table. And the cards, they feel pretty good. They're not top shelf card stock, I've got to say. I think I was a little bit taken aback by the quality of the card stock. They weren't terrible, but they weren't great. Nothing a few sleeves can't fix. And we had a couple of games of that. It was super fun. One of the things that I'll say is there's a mechanic in there called shift, which I think is really clever. So you might have, if you're a 9-year-old girl, you might have 5 Elsa cards in your hand, in your deck. And so you play the first one, and then the next one you play will have shift on it, which allows you to play it on top of the first one. And each of the cards will be slightly different. One might have power X, one will have power Y, one will have ability C or D. And so when you play the second one onto the first one, you get to play it down as a discount. So if it costs you 6 to play the first one out, it'll say right on the card, shift, reduce cost by 3, for example. So it only costs you 3 to put the second one down. And if you put the second one down on the first one, you get all the powers off both cards. It's really, really clever, and I really like it a lot. Cards get banished, of course. They're not killed. They're banished from the game. And there's plenty of card variety. It only takes about 20 minutes. I can easily see this being a rabbit hole of gambling, which is what, booster packs are. You go and you get your booster pack, you open it up. Ooh, I got a shiny card. I personally don't care. I played my Magic. I had a 5,000 card Magic collection in 1996. I went down that rabbit hole. I don't need to do it again. The Peanut doesn't see the need for more cards just yet because she's getting her head around the cards she's got. I can imagine she might want a booster pack or 2 more for, what's in there, rather than, this is a super powerful card. She's not in that gameplay state where she's going to be uber competitive about building a deck that destroys her father yet. Give it a year. And, her pocket money doesn't really go far enough to do that kind of thing. So Lorcana. If you haven't played Lorcana, play Lorcana. It's not expensive. $29 for a starter pack, versus if you want a new starter deck for the Fallout Magic the Gathering, I think it's $105 or something absolutely stupid. I love Fallout. I'm a mad Fallout fan. My daughter Lou plays Magic, and I thought for 0.6 seconds, look, I'll get a Fallout deck. I love Fallout. $100 for 60 Fallout cards for a game that I played 32 years ago? No, thank you. You can have that, Hasbro. I mean, look, license to print money. The only thing I think they're missing on right now is Star Wars. I think they've just released the Magic the Gathering Marvel set. If they haven't, it's coming. Go for it. Just milk that magic cow. But for us, 2 decks of Lorcana, I can see there being 20 or 30 games in these 2 decks quite easily and happily. And at 15 minutes a game, once you've sort of got yourself sorted out, you can sit down in an evening before bed. The Peanut and I can play 2 or 3 games of Lorcana. No problem at all. Whew! And that was the game that were. Very exciting week. I mean, honestly, so exciting. This coming week is going to be much, much better, and I won't spoil anything. But I've got some great games in the chute for the next few days, and now that I can sit at a table without weeping openly, it's a great time. So the next coming week is going to be much, much better, and very much looking forward to it. Now on to my favorite part of the show. FOMOMOFO, where we talk about all the marketing-induced panic related to crowdfunding and pre-orders. There's plenty of FOMO about this week, with some campaigns drawing to a close and some big ones on the horizon. My board game account took a total pillaging with my recent trip to PAX, and not so much just in board games, but with the expense of the trip as a whole. I think I spent almost as much feeding myself as I did on board games, and with the price of board games in Australia, that should tell you everything you need to know about dining out in this fair continent in 2024. I told the Fox this while I was away, and her answer was, well, sounds like you haven't spent enough on board games. #DreamGirl. FOMOMOFO this week is not an exhaustive list of crowdfunding offerings, but rather just those that have my attention for one reason or another, either because I have a personal interest in them, because they seem generally interesting, because they seem to be offering something new or otherwise novel, or they're full of toys, sometimes all of the above. This week, it could be because they're setting off more red flags than my ex. I must be colorblind. Jesus. I will try not to recap or dwell on FOMO that I've already shared with you, except to provide updates where necessary. And so, kicking off the start of the big FOMOMOFO week with Kickstarter. Restart. Restart was one I was watching for a while. It's a game of time travel, restarting the timeline. It looked interesting. I don't know a lot more than that because, ironically, only a handful of days into the campaign, it was cancelled. I'm probably, and safely, I would think, assuming that they were hopeful for a more meteoric campaign start, as it funded in just a day or two. I'm guessing they were hoping for a 91,000% funded within 8 seconds kinds of result. Bless the Kickstarter algorithm for making this sort of bullshit necessary. I've tried to resist the incoming dad joke and cannot watch this space for Restart to restart sometime in the near future, and I'm not even sorry. It looked good, it looked interesting, I wanted to know more, so hopefully it restarts, and we can all learn a little more about Restart. Up next is one I've been watching eagerly for the last few weeks. It's called Mad Calla. It launched this week. Looks really great. Mad Calla is a Mancala style game. We'll come to that. Done in the Wonderland's War universe by Druid City Games. It's got outstanding production. Table present looks great. Gameplay looks really tight and interesting. The theme and the art by Manny Tremblay is fantastic. Here's my one challenge with this campaign, really, and it's shipping. You know, the game itself isn't overly expensive, given the usual production quality of Druid City Games, and I think it's $49 US. Very reasonable. It's very reasonable for a game. But the shipping's $18. So here in Australia, that's, you know, what's that? That's a $75 game with $27 in shipping on top of that. So it's a $100 game. And the shipping's almost half the price of the game itself. You know, if you're getting more things in the campaign, James Hudson, who runs very transparent campaigns despite drowning in the communication sometimes, you know, he's always very transparent about things, and he has said that he's got some great shipping synergies coming up. So while he's unable to build your exact shipping cost, you are able to get everything Wonderland's War in this campaign. And what that means, I would hope, is that if you were getting more than just Mad Calla, so if you wanted to get the Deluxe Wonderland's War, which is available, if you wanted to get some of the Deluxe Wonderland's War Kickstarter items that recently fulfilled last year, because you missed out on those, like the Deluxe Chips, which are, I think, up with the Iron Clays from Brass, some of the best chips in the game. They really are. I mean, they are superb. I think if you were getting more things in this, it sounds like the shipping would be less of a challenge. I'm going to struggle with the notion of spending $27 for shipping a $75 game. The flip side of that is that this may or may not come to retail. You know, there may be some locals like More Than Meeples or Gameology or Advent Games, which are all great places to get your games in the eastern seaboard of Australia. They deal a lot in these Kickstarter retail releases. You know, and I, to be honest, I would think that if I was going to be getting it from one of these guys, I'm not pointing at any of them in particular, it would probably be $100 anyway. You know, getting a decently produced game in Australia that's not a mass-produced game. I'm not talking about something like a Watergate or a My City or a Land vs. Sea or a Sagrada or any of these games which are mass-produced now. I'm talking about something that's boutique and bespoke and a little bit more hard to find. To be honest, I think even if I'm getting it aftermarket from these guys, it's probably going to cost me $100. And the question I'm asking myself is there $100 worth of game in there? And I know we're getting off topic a bit here. We're going to come back and talk about Mad Calla, but we are going to segue into this because what is $100 worth of gameplay? You know, is that one really amazing session? Is that one game that you play 50 times and love? Is it a game you play twice but looks great on the shelf? I don't have an answer. It's all of the above, really. But when I look back and I think, I bought Oathsworn for, I think, $145. Now, yes, Oathsworn's still sitting there. It's unplayed. I've played the first 3 missions, and I'm going to reset it and play it with the boys and girls. But I look at that. I look at IS's Vanguard, where the core box was $150. And that was 24 2.5-hour sessions that was outstanding. I mean, I look at Oak. I bought the Oak Deluxe edition. It cost me $185. You know, I bought that aftermarket after Kickstarter. Oak is sitting on my shelf of shame. It looks so great, and the deluxe version looks amazing. Is Mad Calla a $100 game? The short version of that is probably, it probably is. Will I back it? I don't know. I'm probably 50-50 at this point. Battleships has backed it because he and his lovely wife desperately want to get those premium chips for Wonderland's War. They love Wonderland's War and they want those premium chips, and I totally get that. And that's probably going to make it worthwhile for him. I'm not sure that $100 for Mad Calla is going to be worth it. But that said, it looks great. So Mad Calla redoes the Tea Party from Wonderland's War in an interesting format. It's a riff on the historical Mancala style of gameplay, where you collect all the bits from one space and you seed them all along the following sections, taking actions either from each one or, in this case, from just the end. So you're plucking what looks like your madness shards from Wonderland's War, all from one section. There might be one, there might be six, and you've got to drop one in each, play it all around the table. And when you get to the last one, you take the action there. And one of your shards does double of whatever the action is. The game's as old as Jesus. It's 2,000 years ago that the Mancala, can be traced back. So, yeah, this game is as old as Jesus. If the Mormons came to the door saying, we'd like to speak to you about Druid City games, I would absolutely invite them in. Are you listening, Church of Latter-day Saints? This is your chance to modernize yourself. Sorry, back on track. This game uses the same characters as Wonderland's War. You've got the Mad Hatter, you've got Alice, you've got the Jabberwock, you've got the Caterpillar, and those same beautiful clay chips. There aren't as many of them because this isn't a bag builder, but the chips act as tokens on each of the characters. And so when you're playing, you've got a host of characters that are at this Mad Calla Tea Party with you, and they do one-off powers that can, in some cases, refresh, and the chips are sort of counters for that. The game looks amazing. It looks amazing. I get to take my hat off to Druid City. It comes with a lovely stitched edge playmat as standard, much like Mlem, if you've played Mlem. And it rolls up, it fits in the box, which just makes me infinitely happy. The cards are all black core linen finish. If you know, you know, right? So they're not sparing any expense in the production. To be honest, this game selling for $49, I think is a triumph of production, because if I walked in and this game was $75, $49 US, $75 in Australia, if I walked into a game store and this game as it is was $75, I'd be like, yep, here you go. No problem at all. And I don't know why I'm balking about $27 in shipping, because realistically, I have paid a whole lot more in shipping for games than $27. I think it just stings given that it's such a large percentage of the cost of the game. And according to James Hudson, who's head of Druid City Games, there is no firm plan at this stage to bring this game to retail globally. That cranks the FOMO. I got to be honest. Knowing that this is not, there's no retail plan. That doesn't mean it won't happen. It means there's no retail plan. Takes this FOMO to 11, because I do love Wonderland's War. I love the art. I love the table. That little stitch edge playmat really looks spectacular. So I'm on the fence on this one. I've got some big bills to pay for games, for campaigns and pledge managers that are coming due this month. So we'll just see. One of the things I do like that he's done, and because he's quite, as I say, open and transparent, and this is another sort of hats off to Druid City for taking the lead on something that's a little bit controversial, but doing it because it's the right thing for business. He has said in some of the forums that the hardest customer he ever has to deal with is the customer that's dropped $1 in the pledge manager. That there are hundreds and sometimes over 1,000 people that'll drop $1 in the pledge manager, go back to it later, which is great. Great for us. I've done it many times with games. But what ends up happening is they're the ones that are the pushiest. They're the ones that are the hardest work. They're the ones that are, well, when are we getting? What are we having? What are we seeing? Before they hit the button on an actual purchase. And he's talked at length about the hundreds and hundreds of hours he spends talking to these people, which is, that's part of the program. He accepts that. But then the conversion rate on these dollars is actually quite low. So what he's done, and I might get the dollar number wrong, but if you want pledge manager access for this game or for this campaign, he's charging you $10, right? So at $10, you've got to think that there's got to be at least a 90% conversion rate. Now, $10 isn't a ton of money, but I'm not going to throw $10 in something to hedge my bets. I'm going to throw $10 in a campaign because it allows me to pay the bill later, which is, to be honest, one of the only things I use the $1 pledge manager access for. I don't use it because I'm on the fence about the game usually. I use it because I'm on the fence as to whether or not I've got the budget for that game. And so I'll throw $1 in, and that gives me Pledge Manager access, which is usually 3 months later to say, well, now, yep, I've got the cash, let's do it. And I think at $10, at $10, this is 10 US dollars, and I might have that wrong, it might be 5, I'm pretty sure it was 10. At $10 to buy into the Pledge Manager, you're getting people who are only serious, and they're really just using it for that later mechanic. And I think that's really clever, and I look forward to seeing what that looks like and how that plays out in the coming months. You know, James is very active in his Discord and talked really openly and candidly with all the fans. And so I'm very much looking forward as a gamer, but also as a new content creator, and also as somebody who's very passionate about this industry, as to what that might do to transform what campaigns look like. Because it's going to do two things. One, it's going to make sure that people are far more likely to convert into actual sales, right? If you're throwing $10 down, walking away from $10 is not the end of the world, but it's 10 times harder than walking away from $1. Right, like it really is. But two, it's also, if they do walk away, it's throwing $10 on a campaign, and I'm not talking about for people like Awakened Realms and Simon and whatever else, because these guys are like, they don't need your $10, right? They're running $10.2 million campaigns, but the guys like Druid City Games, the guys like Tim Eisner, who recently did the March of the Ants, whatever the case is, these are your boutique niche producers. And this is probably one of the only ways they can get their game to production is through crowdfunding. And if they're getting $10 out of you instead of $1, and you decide to walk away, that's actually a win for them. They're going to have $10 extra that they can redistribute amongst all the other people that have gone in on this game. So it's a win-win. They're either going to get a converted sale, which is going to increase the distribution of the game, or they're going to have a higher pot of money with which to produce games for everyone else. I think it's clever. I think it's really clever, and I take my hat off. I really look forward to following that to its inevitable conclusion. So that's Mad Calla. I'm about 50-50. Battleships has gone in on this, which means that at least there's a copy in our group that I can borrow. It's nice to have one on the shelf, you know, so that when you're feeling spontaneous, you know, and your darling wife says, "Hey, what's that weird little game with the teacups?" And I go, "Mad Calla, here it is. You got it, baby. Let's get it on the table. Grab a glass of wine. Let's play Mad Calla." Or the Peanut. The Peanut can play Mad Calla. Absolutely. It's not that it's this overly simplified game, but it's you pick some things up, you redistribute them, you do something. There's a lot of strategy in that, but the basic game flow would be something very easy for her to pick up. So I'm probably leaning more on the yes than no side of this. I may take the aforementioned option of dropping the $10 in so I can pay for it later. I've got things coming due this weekend like Harbinger, Cloudspire Harbinger, and Speakeasy. And the Pledge Manager is closing soon for Galactic Cruise, which I will not be missing out on because that game looks absolutely spectacular. Yeah, there's a few more coming up today in FOMOMOFO that I'm probably leaning into as well. So this next one is less of FOMO and more a bit of NOMO for so many reasons, you know. And this is, let me preface this by saying, I am not here to shit on someone's hard work. But I just want to raise that this particular campaign, it's got a lot of red flags. And for me, this is a no-mo. And I thought we don't do this. I don't do this. I'd like to think OMC is a largely effusively positive podcast about board games and whatnot. I'm still in a bit of pain. I've had a crappy week. And so I'm here to have a bit of a piss and whinge today. This is all about me. Me. So, no-mo-mofo. This one's called Mutagen. And the cover of the box looks like they cloned Wolverine with Abraham Lincoln to remake the box art from a furnace and then threw up on it. Go look at the box. Tell me you can't unsee Wolverine and Abraham Lincoln. This game wouldn't have had my attention at all, except they went the route of Oak, in that and Oak's another game we've already talked about. But in this game, you can attach little fisty mechanical gloves to your meat to upgrade your meeples. Right, so your meeples get upgraded, they can do different things. There's like 10 different sets of gloves, which as a 50-year-old man, I think would be a nightmare. Which gloves are your guys freaking wearing? Oh, they're the spiky ones? No, they're the round curvy ones. What does that mean you can do? I don't care. You look at them, they look great. The meeples with the little silicone punchy gloves on them that upgrade them looks great. There's quotes by the usual suspects, but there's... Look, and I'm a fan of Rado. Let me also preface this by saying I'm a fan of Rado. I think watching his stuff is great. It's easy watching. You know what you're getting with Rado. He's only going to do a video about a game that he likes. It's effusively positive. But here's a couple of quotes from Rado. Quote, "This game is going to have a fantastic solo mode." Okay, it's going to, or it does. You know, I've never once heard Rado say, "This game just isn't for me," or "No, not this game." You know, when you watch a Rado gameplay, he talks through everything he does. And so I like his videos, you know. But he's always enthusiastic. And if you're from Australia, he's the big Kev of board games. And if you're not from Australia, think Steve Irwin. I'm so excited. But here's the thing. It's going to have a fantastic solo, which means he doesn't. He hasn't seen it. How is that a sales pitch for a game? You know, it's not... Here's the other one. And I'm quoting again, quote, "I'm super duper stoked for the expansion modules. I want those desperately." Now, not to read between the lines, but do we want those desperately because without them the game isn't great? You know, the expansions are being done by board game heavyweights. There's an expansion being done by David Turksey, and there's one being done by Johnny Pack. And according to the campaign, Mutagen is designed by up-and-coming designer Alexandros Kapadakis, who has many top-quality games to come. I'm sorry, what the fuck does that mean? So he's never designed a top-quality game. He's got many to come. Is this one of them? Have we got David Turksey and Johnny Pack doing expansions because that puts some names in lights? So it looks interesting, and the involvement of those two fellows have me reading further, you know. But a little throwback, if you're Gen X and you look at those meeples, you immediately think of Flintstones multivitamins. You can literally taste it when you look at them. Look, the game's not overly expensive, but it does seem a total hodgepodge with a bunch of names just stickered onto it. There are so many videos. There's a lot of content. You can go watch them and find out if it's for you, you know. And it's not even that expensive a game. I think it's another $49 game for $28 in shipping. But if you go down to the end of the campaign, there's like this family tree of the design team. And they have Johnny Pack and David Turksey getting higher billing than the art team. You know, and they've just designed two what looks like very small expansions. It just smells of misdirection. I get marketing. So maybe it's marketing rather than misdirection. But more and more, I feel like they're the same thing. It's a huge no for me. And you know, some of these quotes just make my skin crawl. But that's Mutagen. Maybe it's going to be the sleeper hit of 2025. And I will be eating my words. If you've played Mutagen and you have comments on it and you want to tell me to go jump in a lake and eat a bowl of wangs, then send me a message. I'm happy to hear it. I don't know anything about Mutagen other than what's there, though. And as a prospective buyer, I look at it and I go, yeah. Right, onwards. Because releasing games one at a time is amateur hour, and he's already had a campaign with 2 games included. Dr. Rainer Knizia is now releasing games 3 at a time on Kickstarter. I can't keep up with his output, and it seems neither can his publishers, because now they've completely given up and are releasing the equivalent of McDonald's combos. This time it's Silos, Ego, and Orbit. Each one is apparently an acronym for something alien. It's very loose and spurious at best. We've got Secret Interlopers from Outer Space, which should be Siphos, but it gets Silos. Details. Anyway, there's 3 games. 2 of them are reprints. One's completely new output. One of them, doing a little digging, looks like a reprint of a game that wasn't very good or very well received. And they've kind of been reskinned, so they're all loosely themed to be released together. I'm guessing maybe you could play them all one after the other. Is this Dr. Knizia's latest campaign? If so, it's decidedly heavier in content than My City or My Island. These are about space, aliens. I don't know. I think even diehard Knizia fans must be looking at this stuff and going, shrug. And not to be cynical, I feel like I've gone to the door and there's a fundraiser there campaigning for some unknowable things, and I'm just going to pat my pockets and go, sorry, I don't carry cash. Rainer Knizia has done some truly amazing games. Like, let's just credit where credit is due. He has done some games that have changed the industry, that have set the standards. He's published something like, let me go to let me go to Board Game Geek here. 759 games. That's published. He's published 759 games. And to be honest, in the time I've taken to record this episode, he's probably published another one. He's made... Okay, so let's say he's made 8 great games. I couldn't tell you. Super Trooper could. He's a Knizia fangirl. But even if it's double that or triple that, if it's double that and he's made, 16 or 20, great games, like amazing games. That's like, no other designer can get away with only making 2% of their games great. I don't know. It's a weird one for me. Maybe he rubbed the genie the right way in 1988 and he, he must design 3 games every day by lunchtime though. And none of this is said in disrespect, right? His output when it's great is truly great. That's everything from the light and breezy stuff, like Ra to Through the Desert to the legendary Tigris and Euphrates that no one will ever play again unless you want to buy it as Huang, which is its 3rd generation reskin. I just wish there was a way you could more reliably know when there was a good game coming from him. It's not a fair comparison. It's very apples and oranges. But by comparison, Lacerda's worst game is still great. It might not be for everyone. It might not be for me. But each game is an absolute masterwork of interlocking pieces. Now, I'm not trying to compare Lacerda and Knizia. I actually think Knizia is a better game designer because he has such a breadth of games. He designs card games. He designs dice games, auction games, bluffing games, worker placement, area control. Lacerda designs one kind of game, right? It's like a beautiful mind Russell Crowe wall of interlocking pieces that make you want to stab a letter opener into your temple, right? So I'm not saying Lacerda's a better game designer. I don't actually think that's the case. But he only puts a game out like every 2 years. And while they might not be for everyone, they're all outstanding. Even Kanban EV, which I do not enjoy. I don't like playing Kanban. I've played it probably 8 times. I think 3 times solo, 4 or 5 times, with other people at the table. I don't enjoy Kanban. There's just something about it. It bounces for me, but I can recognize that it's a great game. I just wish there was a better way to know when, you open your phone on Wednesday morning in Australia, Tuesday morning in the rest of the world, and there's new crowdfunding stuff, and there's 3 new games for Reiner Knizia to go, whoa, but are they good games? Anyway, if you want more Dr. Knizia on your shelves, you can always count on more. Here's 3 more. On to Knitting Circle. Knitting Circle is a new game in the Calico universe. And I never thought I'd be talking about Calico in any way, shape, or form, in any sort of positivity. That's not to shit on Calico, but I think if you've heard any of my episodes, you know my thoughts on Calico. This is Knitting Circle, and they're running a 60-day campaign, which I just think is bizarre. That's going to take you pretty much right up to Christmas. 60 days from now, is Christmas Eve. 60 days from recording right now is Christmas Eve. Most campaigns are 2 to 3 weeks at most, and I can't understand. Not that I'm a professional campaigner, but I have run business. I understand business. I have a master's in business of many bits of useless paper that I happen to have. I can't understand why you would run a 60-day campaign, particularly leading up to Christmas where everyone's cash poor. It gives people time to pledge and then get 3 weeks out from Christmas and go, oh, no, I need that money back. Most campaigns are 3 weeks. Yeah. Anyway, Calico. This is not Calico, and it's not even a Calico expansion. Calico needs an expansion, one that involves taking painkillers and 3 rounds of waterboarding, because that would be more fun. But this doesn't look anything like Calico. They've put an orange cat on the box. They're calling it a Calico game, and I think that's smart because lots of people like Calico. But this more looks like knitting meets Azul with some tile drafting and recipe fulfillment, maybe. It comes with an expansion already in the box because no game can be shipped without an expansion in 2024. And again, we're going to get sidetracked. I'm going to segue here because it's my show and I can do whatever I want. I really wish these would be called variants. I really wish we could stop calling this an expansion. That's what we're looking at here. This is $1 worth of components that let you play the game slightly differently. The Lost Fleet for ISS Guard is an expansion. It gives you 15 hours of extra gameplay. Marine Worlds for Ark Nova is an expansion. It gives you so much more depth to the game and actually meaningfully changes the way the game's played. This is not an expansion. This is another little Yay, look over here. Back to misdirection/marketing. And I get it. People see expansion, they go, ooh, exclusive expansion. Oh, I have to have that. Do we? Just call it a variant, right? I mean, Lisboa, Vitello's Lisboa. There is a different way you can play the game called the Queen's Variant, and it's a card that covers a space, and it's another set of rules that slightly changes the gameplay for that space, changes the King's space to a Queen's space, called the Queen's Variant, and that's what it is. You know, it's hard to find. It is not. It doesn't expand the game. It changes one little part of the game, and that's what this looks like. And if I'm coming across jaded, it's that kind of week for me. I've had jack shit of lying on my back, and the lack of board games in my life has made me a prickly old man this week. Sorry, not sorry. If you like Calico, this looks nothing like Calico. This looks more like Calico or Cascadia meets Azul. Also, if you like Calico, double check your life choices. That's Knitting Circle. Next, do you love a good rooting? Root's latest expansion dropped this week. I think I've played Root 3 times on the table. I've played the Woodland Alliance, the Lizard Folk most recently. I think I've played one more. I'm sure I've played it 3 times in person. I've played the digital version several times, though. And the digital version, you know, on iOS or whatever your flavor is a great way to refresh your gameplay before we're playing in person if it's been several weeks or months between games. Because Root absolutely takes my frontal lobe to Pound Town. If you haven't played Root, welcome to the land of the living. You were probably just joined games in the last couple of weeks or months. Root is a woodland warfare game, and it is so asymmetrical. If there are 3 at the table playing, it's almost like playing 3 different games. I mean, not quite. You've got some card play, which is the same between players, but everyone's playing their own game. You're playing your own game start to finish. The way your group works is entirely different. The way you win the game, I mean, you've got to win on points, but the way you get those points is entirely different. The last game I played of Root, I played the Lizard Folk, was the first game of Root that I truly enjoyed. Right? You know, and I think that's probably fair for this game in general. You know, my first game was a royal punish. And I approached my second game. I can't remember what faction I played. We were drawing random factions. I approached that draw with like a deep existential dread. You know, knowing that I was going to spend the first hour of the game going, what the fuck? Because that's Root. But this last game I played, when I played the Lizard Folk, again, the Lizard Folk, they're not an easy faction to play. They're not incredibly complicated, but you are learning a whole rule set from the ground up before you start the game. And I really enjoyed it. It was the first game I've played where I was even remotely competitive in the game, and I was able to sort of leverage the abilities of the Lizard Folk and see ways forward. And I'm now looking forward to my next game of Root. I've come to the conclusion that Root has a lot in common with Cthulhu Wars. You know, if you've ever looked at Cthulhu Wars, it's borderline impossible to internalize the whole board. So don't try. Stop trying. You know, just try to grok your own faction as it interrelates to the board itself, but trying to work out all of the levers between the factions on the board, it grinds the game to a halt, and it's no fun. You just take your lumps when the badgers sweep in and fist you and send you scurrying away. Just go, well, what's next, right? Like you just got to roll with it. It's the same with Cthulhu Wars. You know, you're playing Cthulhu Wars and you've got a plan and you take a move and all of a sudden something has happened on the board and the whole board looks very different, and you can see it coming if you want to sit there and you want to really, you know, AP the board, but it's no fun. You know, instead, we're going to see some sort of strategy with your own faction while just taking the top line idea of the others. It's the way to maintain your sanity. You know, and to be honest, now I can say hand on heart, Root is something special. It rewards repeated plays. You know, if you'd asked me about it 6 months ago, it would have been something I would be far less enthusiastic about, and that's putting it gently. You know, Super Trooper owns everything Root. I have no doubt he'll be backing this one. It's, I think, 3 new factions with 2 new underlings, which I think is going to be great because more Root gives you more options, which is great. I had a quick look at it. It's not expensive. The shipping's not expensive. I really like the look of it. And I'm looking forward to these coming to the table. And I think this is the kind of game that you could spend a whole day playing 3 times back to back with different factions each time, and it would literally feel like a different game. It's not for everyone. For a long time, it wasn't for me. But as it stands, I love a good root session. The latest expansion includes frogs and bats as your underlings, and I think, what did he do? Was it raccoons? No, it wasn't raccoons. Skunks. Skunks are coming. Don't know what they're going to do, but skunks are coming. It'll probably involve teleportation and time travel the way these factions are going. And personally, I can't wait. Root, it's on Kickstarter. It's a new set of expansions. If you like Root, it's more Root. Everyone loves more Root. More Root is better than less Root. The next one was a total surprise. Raising Robots. It's a more stuff expansion. It's called Friends and Inventors. And it's just more stuff. This landed on Kickstarter this week and hit my inbox first thing Wednesday morning, as it does here in Australia, because we live in the future. So Kickstarter Tuesday is Kickstarter Wednesday. I had no idea it was coming. You know, Raising Robots it's a little bit like if Wingspan was more game. Wingspan's great. You know, the Fox loves Wingspan. You're kind of at the behest of what cards you get in Wingspan. And in many ways, Raising Robots is the same. I can't claim to be a Raising Robots expert. I'm staring over at the column in my Kallax that ostensibly forms the Shelf of Shame, and Raising Robots is there. Raising Robots, though, is super cute. Oh, my God. So, I had no idea this was coming. It's landed. It's a more stuff. Raising Robots, it's a synchronous action. It's an action selection. Everyone goes. It's a little bit like Earth in that way. You're bidding for actions in an action market. Everyone gets to take the actions. A little race for the galaxy that way. Someone chooses an action. Everyone gets to do it. You pay for that action. You go through your little tableau. The art is gorgeous. It's so cute. There's Easter eggs all through the art. You know, you can find a little Einstein robot. You can find a little Newton robot. You can find a Marie Curie robot. And again, the new expansion isn't expensive. Shipping is absolutely reasonable. It's probably a yes for me on this one. You know, Raising Robots is very hard to find retail in Australia. I got my copy from More Than Meeples in Brisbane. Shout out to Tristan and Sigmund. You're going to hear a few of those and see those over the months. They do a great job of stocking Kickstarter Deluxes for numpties that miss out on the campaign. And if you live down under like me and you miss a cutoff, check in with them. They will likely have it coming. And this is more stuff for Raising Robots. And, you know, if you don't have all the stuff, do you really have any of the stuff? That'll do it for Kickstarter. I'm going to hop over to Game Found. And I know we touched on this briefly in the previous weeks, but we're going to start with my Bouncing Baby Cloudspire Harbinger. I'm very excited about this. You know, Cloudspire, it's a very niche game. It's almost been labeled a bit of a cult game. Not because we sit around chanting in robes, lighting candles, but because people either really, really love it or just kind of like, meh. And the people that really, really love it, we all hang out together in cafes and high-five each other and jump up. No, we don't. We don't. But it's either absolutely adored or people just kind of go, meh. Cloudspire, it's a tower defense. It's an action programming tower defense with little RPG elements. And I know we talked about this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the game itself. You can go look up Cloudspire. It's stunningly beautiful, like all the Chip Theory games are. And as I'd hoped, there is a big box storage solution. It basically fills a whole Kallax. It's like the Trove chest for Too Many Bones. And it is amazing. It's going to fit everything, which I was really hopeful for, because getting Cloudspire out to play is tough. Because it's a chunky box. The box is 9 kilos, and you've got it's packed in there like Olympic grade Tetris, you know. And apparently the full swag that is coming out will all fit in the original main box with some lid lift. But Chip Theory has actually issued a formal warning saying that while it will fit, the box integrity is not likely to stand up to that kind of weight, as it was never designed with that in mind. You know, cue Jeff Goldblum saying, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. I'm a paraphrase. He didn't say those words. It was something like it. Something about... Anyway, you get the point. So yes, the storage solution is expensive. It's $100 US, which puts it at about 155 Australian dollars. But I look at it this way. The game will actually get played. You know, and this is my experience with the Trove chest, is that, you know, when you've got too many bones packed into 3 or 4 different boxes, getting it out, I've got the time. I've got a huge table in the bunker. I've got the time, I've got the space. But getting it out is tough. Getting it out of the Trove chest is a dream. You've got something like 8 drawers in there. and you pull one drawer out, you pop it on the table, you get what you need, you put the drawer back. You get the second drawer out, you pull everything out you need. It doesn't take long to set up. You know, a game of Too Many Bones realistically is 3.5 hours, and I can have it set up in 20 minutes. Full disclosure here, I play with myself in board games too. In Too Many Bones and Cloudspire, I play these solo. And like Burn Cycle, another chip theory game that I think gets a really bad rap unfairly, I actually think these are solo games. I'm not saying I wouldn't play Too Many Bones with someone else. I would not play Burn Cycle with someone else. You know, I wouldn't. Cloudspire, I would play with someone else because it's action programming and you just have someone else programming the actions instead of the bot. And I think potentially Cloudspire could be really great because you can play that 1v1 or 1v1v1. There are a million maps and scenarios you can set up, and I think it would actually be really great. That involves a huge buy-in, though. You know, the rules grid on Cloudspire is huge, but having the storage box means I will be able to just spin around in my chair and start pulling drawers out because my Too Many Bones trove chest sits right behind my chair on the Calyx. I spin my chair around, I pull things out there on the table. The Cloudspire box will sit right next to it, and I'll just be able to spin around, pull out what I need, have it on the table, get it set up and ready to go. The solo for Cloudspire is an absolute triumph. You play 3 scenarios for each race or faction, and then you move on to the next one, and there's a narrative arc that follows through. It's really, really great. You know, they've released hardcover books that have the scenarios all bound in them. You know, I don't need those. I don't need a hardcover book because, you know, I'm not collecting books. But the art is also great in these things. And I stand by it. I think, you know, chip theory makes great games. I think the times that chip theory gets a bad rap for their games is probably the times they're being played multiplayer, because they're solo versions of all their games, or the solo play of all their games, because they're not even a version, it's just you're playing the game, is outstanding, you know. And coming back to the storage box, I know a lot of big developers look at the big box. You know, Super Trooper and I talk about this occasionally. They talk about the big box as the tomb, the place where the game goes to die. You know, and I know I've heard this sort of sentiment from those not in my circle but online in forums who own the nesting box for Wingspan, or the Infinity box for Anachrony, or the whatever the big name box is for Scythe. I can't remember. You know, and stuff goes in there, it goes on the shelf, and it's such an ordeal to get it out that it becomes a place where the game goes to die. Personally, I find the Anachrony big box exceptional. I play solo, so packing and the unpacking effort, it's not holding anyone up. I can unpack it the night before, I can leave it on the table, it doesn't bother me, and I love being able to get everything in one box, but I get that. Unlike these kind of big boxes, the Trove chest and the Cloudspire chest, whatever it's called, the benefit of setup is greatly improved. You know, the speed of setup, the method of storage, where you put things in these boxes is intuitive. You never have to get a scrap of paper out and go, right, where does this one tray go? It goes, da, 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 da. I've got to build the 9 layers up and fill it. It's none of that. You've got drawers in this chest. It's beautiful. So that's that. I am all in with the exception of the minis. I have no interest in the minis for Cloudspire. They're basically little tower ramparts that sit over your chips. I'm not a fan of those. I don't think they add particularly to the game, much like I don't take the brass minifigs for Burn Cycle or Too Many Bones. I like the chip stacks with the art on top. And that's that. That will be here in the bunker in anywhere between 12 to 18 months. But one of the things I do really like about this campaign, and one of the things that I know we all love about GameFound, which is stretch pay. Too Many Bones, Chip Theory, they're offering stretch pay over 10 months, right? 10 months. So that $150 storage box is going to cost me $15 a month for the next 10 months. And it's meant to fulfill, I think, in 12 or 13 months. So really, I'm only just going to finish paying for it, and it's going to be here in 2 or 3 months. Rather than dumping a huge pile of cash in someone else's account, I can spread it out. And for those economists amongst us, you know, paying future bills at current rates is actually saving you money. I won't go into that, but paying a future payment on something, interest-free, I will also add, when you're paying a payment 10 months from now, money's inflated, the economy's inflated, but you're paying the same rate you were today. It's actually cheaper. You can fight me on that if you like, or you can go look it up. But if you can ever stretch something out interest-free, you are always winning. So for me, yes, it's an expensive buy. I want to say I'm probably in on Cloudspire, the Cloudspire campaign, for somewhere in the realm of 400 Australian dollars. But I said that's $40 a month for 10 months. Easy peasy. I mean, Kickstarter, sort your shit out. Honestly. Last one, I think it's the last one. Yes, the last one for today is more of a PSA than a FOMOMOFO, and that's letting everyone know that Tainted Grail Kings of Ruin has reopened their pledge manager, right? And the way it looks is they've got excess stock. And so if you've missed out on the campaign, reading between the lines, you can hop in now and quote-unquote late pledge and get the game. And when I say get the game, I mean get the game. Like these things have already shipped. I've already finished Tainted Grail. It's already sitting in Super Trooper's house. He's working through it. I played Tainted Grail Kings of Ruin in 24, 25 sessions straight. It sat on my table. I played it not quite every night. I think it might have been at least every second night. It was done and dusted in 5 or 6 weeks, and I loved every minute of it. If this is the case, and you can get the latest campaign, no waiting, someone feel free to correct me if that's wrong, but on GameFound, you can late pledge for Tainted Grail, and it's already shipped. It was a masterpiece of storytelling. I played it solo two-handed, 5 stars out of 5, 11 out of 10. I will absolutely be playing it again at some point with the other 2 characters, as the story is quite different depending on what characters you play. And I love that you can challenge the main bosses with either combat or diplomacy. The gameplay's similar, but the flavor of the conflict and the outcomes is slightly different. This is not a Tainted Grail overview. It's just a PSA that if you feel like crap, I missed out on Tainted Grail, if I'm reading it right, you can hop in, you can order it, and you will have it very quickly. That's all I'm watching in crowdfunding at the moment. I'm currently waiting on 11 deliveries between now and the end of the year. These are made up of both crowdfunding and pre-orders. I'd say about half of these are probably a sure thing and that's being woefully optimistic, with the other half being about 50-50. If it's not on the water in the next 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be incoming for 2025, I'd say. And that's a wrap for FOMOMOFO this week.
Voices in my head, I'm talking to myself. What board game should I get down off the shelf?
This week in Voices in My Head, it's kind of like my favorite things, except it's opposite day. I've had plenty of time lying on my ass for the last week, stewing about the injustice of it all. So this week, it's everything that grinds my gears in board gaming. It's not a long list, but it's a hot one. And for those of you that know me personally, if you feel targeted by this, it's not aimed at you. It's aimed at your whole people. I will not be covering off bad habits at the table, for example. I'm not interested in calling out anyone in particular for stuff that peeves me off. This is rather just a general whinge. I've been hopped up on codeine for a week, staring at the ceiling, not playing games, and so I am venting. And please note that while this is just one gigantic piss and whinge, it's not meant to tear apart anyone's hard work or their tireless endeavors. I get that thousands of hours go into every game behind the scenes. This is not OMC calling anyone out for not working hard enough. I've had a shitty week. And so I'm venting about all the things that drive me bonkers, things that miss the mark, things that our moms would look at and say, was that really the best you could do? And so up first is bad rule books. Okay, so 2024, thank all that is good and holy in the world for people like John Gets Games and Nithranya, Gaming with Gru. For those of you, we have listeners in Slovakia. Gaming with Gru. I know he's not from Slovakia, but for those of us that don't live in that part of the world, you guys all sound the same, and we love it. Gaming with Gru, Branislav Berek, Nithranya Games Channel. I love listening to Branislav Berek. Honestly, it is Gaming with Gru at its finest. For people like Gaming with Gru, Paul Grogan, John Gets Games, Meeple University. God, I'm going to miss a million, but like, thank Zeus for you guys. Because you guys are the only thing that keeps me from burning the world down when I get a bad rule book. Mage Knight. God, Mage Knight, it's a triumph of a game. I still can't get my head around this. The same guy that made Mage Knight that made Codenames. Like, what kind of universe is that? But Mage Knight, it's not that the rule book is horribly long. It's like 20, 30 pages, but it's in like 6 font. It's teeny tiny print. And when you're trying to search for a rule, it's not organized in a way that makes it easy to do so. Trying to find a ruling on an edge case or trying to get a clarification on something in that rule book, you need the fucking Hubble telescope. Okay? You really do. And if I haven't warned you earlier, this is where things might get a little extra sweary. If you've got kids in the car, you might want to hit pause or just say, Uncle James has had a bad day. Let them know that I'm an adult and it's okay. Mage Knight's rulebook. It's not that it's a hate crime in and of itself, but it's very hard to navigate. Robinson Crusoe was another one. Trying to learn to play Robinson Crusoe from the manual was a logistical impossibility. And with that in mind, Dized, if you don't know the app Dized is an app that has hand-holding tutorials for a lot of games. And they've got a step-by-step guided tutorial for the first scenario in Robinson Crusoe. Didn't help me win, didn't help me do well at the game. It did. Another one, Tiny Epic Dungeons. Now, the Tiny Epic games, they are sometimes good, sometimes meh, sometimes really good. I'm of the opinion that Tiny Epic Dungeons is exceptional. It's an exceptional game. But the iconography in that game, while totally clear once you understand it, is not translated well in the rulebook. You've got this Tiny Epic rulebook, which needed another 20 pages. And I remember getting that out because I've got everything Tiny Epic Dungeons. I've got the playmat and I've got the potions and I've got it's a great dungeon crawler. It really is. The art is whimsical. The gameplay's fun. It's hard. It's not an easy game to play. The only thing that got me through the learning curve of that was Dized, Tiny Epic Dungeons, and the number of forums I'm in where people are saying, I've got this game called Tiny Epic Dungeons, and what the actual fuck? And I'll hop in and go, get the Dized app. And they'll come back the next day going, oh my god, thank you so much. Because it will take you through every single turn, and all the options in every turn. And it has saved me and made that from this game needs to be burned to, wow, this is a great game. I don't want this to be a shopping list of bad rulebooks. As I said, I'm not here to call people out for half a job. Writing a rulebook is a very special skill. One that I get a lot of comments on and I hear from a lot of people is that they really, really hated the Voidfall rulebook. I really enjoyed it. I really like the Voidfall rulebook. What the Voidfall rulebook does is at each section, it's got color-coded. So here's the main rules, and then in red, that's the solo variant, and in blue, that's the competitive variant. And if you don't know that going in, it's a little overwhelming. And so I can understand why people don't take to that rulebook. I thought it was great. I thought the Voidfall rulebook was exceptionally written because once I started playing the game, once I got through the tutorial scenario, which I played solo before the boys got to the table, I don't know that I've had to look at the rulebook more than once or twice in the 20 plays of Voidfall I've had since. But I can understand why some people look at it and absolutely despise it. Largely, and I'm reading between the lines and a lot of these comments and the way people are commenting on them and the commentary and the dialogue, these are people who have no interest in solo because the overwhelming comment is, take the solo part out, it was too confusing. I don't think it was, is my opinion. I think it was really great. But rule books, that's an art form. Those of you that write rule books, this is not me telling you do a shit job. That's not it. But I do get really deeply frustrated when I pull a garbage one out, or when I get a rule book and you go to BGG and you realize there's errors in the rule book, and so you've either got to have stickers or scribbles or something in the rule book because something's not gone right. I've been in marketing and business for 3 decades. The art of proofreading is something that is so vital. And unfortunately, some companies, I'm not saying this would happen with any of these, some companies haven't sent them through enough eyes. People sit down and write the rule book, then they'll write the rule book, then they'll edit the rule book. Really, if you've got an important document, it's got to go through 50 hands, and everyone's got to read it. One of my favorite stories is, one of the services that Paul Grogan provides is he will sense check rule books. You can send him your game and your rule book, and he will try to learn the game from the rule book and try to teach from the rule book, and then give you feedback. It's a very valuable service because the rule books that I know Paul Grogan's been involved in have been some of the best that I've played. ISS Vanguard. The rule book in ISS Vanguard was a triumph for me. Bad rule books. They ruin lives. The next one's, this is, maybe not everyone feels this. Maybe not everyone needs to have the shiny and the lovely, but I want to talk about bad components. And I don't just mean average components. I mean bad components and bad component design. It doesn't ruin my life, but it can really ruin my gameplay. Underwater cities. Here's an example. Underwater Cities, it's a Vladimir Suki game. It's a really clever game. It's interesting. It's fun. Your player board is basically an A4 card. And onto there, you've got to place little biodomes, and you've got to put little chips representing your underwater kelp farms and little tunnels that go from dome to dome. And the tunnels have to sit, they all have to sit on outlines. And some of these little chips have to stack. So you've got a bigger kelp farms that are 2 chips. If you have the sleeve of death, or someone gets up and they bump the table, your game is over. It is done, because you've got very little hope of being able to piece this thing all back together, because you've got this card sitting on the table with 30 pieces on it. Underwater Cities as well, the card stock, it's very, very... I mean, I think when I bought Underwater Cities, the cards weren't even shrink wrapped. They were just loose in a snap lock, which, okay, you send them shrink wrap. I'm going to undo the shrink wrap and put them in a snap lock. I get that. It wasn't a rebox. This was not a rebox. This is how it came. I looked it up. These cards just came in snap locks, and the cardstock feels, sleeves fix all, right? Sleeves fix all, and I get that. But nothing made me happier than to get the Underwater Cities New Discoveries expansion, because the New Discoveries expansion came with dual layered player boards. It had new game mechanics. There's a new board. There's the museum and whatnot, which is great. Dual layered player boards. I mean, you don't need them for everything, but when you've got a board that's holding 40 little bits, you need something. Let's talk about Ark Nova. One of my favorite games, Ark Nova. I think it may be the multiplayer non-campaign game that I have played the most. I think it was one of the first games I invested in. We were looking at some of the old stats, Super Trooper and I, the other day. I think it was one of the first games I ever invested in for the game group. I said, no, let me get Ark Nova. Ark Nova, as far as gameplay goes, I adore. The components are an abomination. Again, you've got this map, which is a card. And on that card, you've got to have 20 little wooden bits. It might not be 20, it might be 14. And then you've got to build your zoo out of all these little tokens that get built on your zoo. And there's literally nothing holding them in place. And for me, if somebody were to release an insert... Now, if you've got the dual layer player boards from Voidfall, you're going to go, I know exactly what you mean, man. And it's basically... It's an insert that you slide your faction card into in Voidfall. Your huge faction card, which is easily the size of your Ark Nova map. You slide it in, and it has all these gorgeous recesses for everything you need to use to play Voidfall. If somebody, Aftermarket, or I think it's Ark Nova's at Furlan Games, if Furlan released it and said, look, it's an Aftermarket, we're going to do it, here's your 4, you slide your map in. It doesn't have to have recesses for every single map tile, but at least have those map tiles corralled in a frame, and all your little cubes and your meeples and bits in recesses. You could charge me $40 for 4 of these things, and I wouldn't even care. I'd be like, that's absolutely going to make my life easier. And I love Ark Nova. Even when I played a game of Ark Nova and ended up with, I think, 1 chameleon in my zoo, I still had fun. I think I might have got a second animal out by the end, but anyway, 1 chameleon zoo. And look, shall we talk about Ark Nova money? These are black squares with numbers on them. I mean, they've gone to the effort and detail and Easter eggs that the ornithologist sponsorship card is a photo of Elizabeth Hargrave, designer of Wingspan. Let's do that. That'll be fun. We won't even tell anybody, but it's there. But we're going to give you black squares for money. Like, I don't need silver cubes with elephants and popcorn boxes on them. I would 100% buy that shit. I don't need it. But we could have done anything but black squares. And much like Underwater Cities, the card stock on Ark Nova is not great. The art is fine. The iconography is excellent. But the card stock is really average. And I get when you've got a game that has... what does Ark Nova have? 900 cards or something ridiculous? You might not be looking to have black core linen finish, but it's pretty flimsy stuff. Yeah. Another one, and again, I'm not nitpicking, right? Not nitpicking. I am nitpicking. I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone in particular, make anyone feel bad, because these are great games. These are absolutely great games. I want to point at Earth. Earth is a really fun game. It's a tableau builder. It's synchronous action. The player in charge takes an action. Everyone gets a lesser version of the action. The card art is fine. I wouldn't call it great, but it's fine. The card stock is shocking. And then on that card stock, you've got to build these little towers of tree trunks and tree canopies. And some of them are like 6 trunk pieces high. And these things only barely balance on top of each other. I've often thought to go and buy a bunch of Lego singles, green 1x1s and brown tops. Like, you'd be better off having little Lego trees because you could snap them in and they'd fit in there. Because these little wooden components are, like, they don't stack. They don't stack, and all it takes is for one hiccup at the table and your entire forest of whatever comes tumbling down. And the little soil tokens are so small, you need surgical tweezers to freaking pick them up from the table. They've gone to make these wooden... This is the upgrade tokens, not even the punchboard ones. These wooden soil tokens. And they are so tiny that it's like, I've got fat finger syndrome. Earth is fun. It's not amazing. Earth is fun. If you haven't played Earth, Earth is really fun. It's not... I would say I like Earth more than Wingspan. There's a little more going on. The Fox likes Earth. We like Earth. I don't love Earth. I don't hate it because the components are shit. But it's just... for me, it's one of the reasons I don't play, and I could have. I got to day 7 of this sit on your ass mofo, and I went, I probably could have tried out Board Game Arena. I don't play Board Game Arena. Not because it's not amazing, but for me, board games is all about sitting at the table, the tactility of it, the pushing stuff around, the interaction. Board Game Arena does not crank me in any way, shape, or form. And getting on there and playing a game of Anachrony by clicking a few icons, I could see using that to remind myself how to play Anachrony. If I hadn't played in a year, great. But, and if you love Board Game Arena, I'm not shitting on your parade either, guys. If you like Board Game Arena, then that is amazing. But for me, the components play a really key role in my underpinning enjoyment of a game. They don't have to be wood. They don't have to be metal. They just have to be quality. And I will pay for quality. I'm your demo. I'm 50 years old. I'm mid-tier exec, in a comfortable house. I'm the guy who's going to buy your metal coins. I'm the guy who's going to buy your wooden upgrades. And if you are going to have, for whatever reason, a component that is not top shelf, I'd love it if you could offer me an upgrade. Because I get that the cost of production is the cost of production. Anyway, that's my piss and whinge about bad components. Third one's a tough one because it's hard to quantify and qualify what would be preferred. But I want to talk about bad comms in crowdfunding. Okay, so obviously I'm a bit of a crowdfunding junkie. I love a bit of crowdfunding. I think it's not just very exciting. I think I get better games through crowdfunding than I do through retail. I think I have the opportunity to buy a better game for the same price than I would at retail, basically. And yes, I've got to pay up front and wait a long time. But my own experience is that when I finally do get the product from crowdfunding, it is a superior product to what I'm going to walk in and get off the shelves. Most times, I will couch this in most times. But bad comms in crowdfunding. For example, when campaigns go dead for 2 months, when people have very real questions or concerns in the forums and they're totally ignored. And in some cases, like I want to talk about Forbidden Games. Forbidden Games, Glenn Drover makes great games. I can totally understand this because it's basically one guy. And you got something like, I'm going back 2 years now, give or take, the Mosaic campaign, which exploded. The Mosaic campaign exploded. Mosaic's a great game. My understanding is that Forbidden Games is like one dude. And there were like 13,000 comments. And the guy's trying to make us games. It's a full-time job plus to answer these comments. And people were losing their freaking banana. I totally get it. Right? Like, you are busy trying to bring these things to light. Or Druid City. Druid City with James Hudson. We've already talked about Druid City today. It's a very small company. And Druid City is managing a very high output. The quality of games that come out of Druid City is very high. And the higher the quality of your output, the more attention it needs. And that means that you've got less time and attention to answer comments on Kickstarter. And let's be honest, Kickstarter can be a really toxic place. You got people that have dropped their $100 and then they're like, where's my game? Why can't I get my game? Update, +1. Where's our update? Where's our game? I'm never backing you again because the communication of this is horrible. I've run business. It's not easy. And when you've got small companies doing extremely high level stuff like Druid City, if you've got no patience, on behalf of all backers to companies like Druid City and Forbidden Games, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you got to cop this because I see it and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that people are dropping money and they think that they own you. And I can understand why companies like Stonemaier have absolutely dropped crowdfunding. Jamie Stegmaier of Stonemaier Games is very transparent. We want to talk about Jamie Stegmaier a little bit further, but very transparent in why he stepped away from crowdfunding and this very reason of this ongoing toxicity. And in this instance, talking about bad comms, I'm not even talking about situations like Mythic Games, who were clearly on the rocks for years, allegedly. I'm talking more about those mid-tier companies who probably have the power to do so, but don't necessarily engage a comms person. Those companies that do it really well are the really huge ones. Awaken Realms and CMON. They must have full-time comms people because every comment on every forum gets answered, no matter how shitty or how whingy. And that, unfortunately, is a lever for credibility in the eyes of the people that are backing the games. And I say unfortunately because just because you're answering a lot of comments doesn't mean you're a credible game producer, right? So you've got companies who are huge and have full-time people. You've got companies who are small and can't do it at all. But then you've got companies that are in that Goldilocks band, like Stonemaier. Or I don't want to talk about Stonemaier Games. And granted, Stonemaier is a juggernaut now. You can see a lot of things that are happening with Stonemaier. They're moving away so much from exclusive game design, which they still do a lot of. If you're following along with what's happening with Stonemaier, there's a very exciting game, a roguelike game coming out of Stonemaier next year called Vantage, which looks fresh and really interesting. But they're also getting more into publishing and production with things like, I think it's called Stamp Swap that just came out, which I know they probably had a big hand in finalizing the development for, but they're moving from more world building and developing into publishing. And one of the things that, even if you want to track back to the year that Scythe was released, Jamie Stegmaier is a master of comms, right? Whether he's doing it personally, well, I'm not going to assume that he's answering everything personally on his personal account, but it does appear so. You get comments in the Tapestry forums, comments in the Scythe forums, comments on BGG that are from Jamie Stegmaier's account answering questions. He gets on, at one point it was once a week. I don't know if he's doing it once a week anymore because I don't seem to get the alerts because I'm in the wrong time zone. And he has a live Q&A, in his office where he just talks about what's happening. And he's affable, he's open, and he's transparent. Stonemaier seems to be able to anticipate their customers' needs. I get newsletters from Stonemaier about stuff when I don't even know I'm ready for it. And one of the things I love is they're able to say, through their cone of silence and secrecy and whether they've got some sort of blood ritual so none of this escapes, there's no blood ritual in Stonemaier Games. They will announce a new game and go, by the way, you can order it in 3 weeks. It's ready to go. And I don't know how they keep that under wraps, but the way they manage their comms is really exceptional in that regard. Everyone take a look at Stonemeier's comms, because there's a fine line between not enough and too much. I don't necessarily need an update every 2 weeks on a campaign either, but if I don't get anything for 3 months, I don't get concerned, because I really don't back low-risk campaigns anymore. But I do like to see, even if the update's like, hey guys, all good, here's some photos, not much else to report, high five, we'll check in with you soon. There's not enough of that in a lot of campaigns. And I think that there's a lot to be learned from some of the experts out there. I will, let's move away from campaigns specifically and talk about online comms. And I want to talk about 2 companies that do distribution in Australia. And I think they get a lot of flack and a lot of heat. That's VR Distribution and Etherworks. And they're probably responsible for bringing most of the crowdfunding games to my door and to most people's doors here in Australia. And again, I'm not finger pointing. I'm not here to tell anyone they're doing a bad job. But I think that there was a meaningful shift, and I'm reading between the lines, in the way these comms have been generated, such that if you go to their Facebook page or their Instagram page, there are weekly updates as to what's coming. This is what we're packing. This is what we're doing. If you've got an issue, send us an email, blah, 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 blah. To where you could kind of see a shift, and I'm going to say it was about 4 months ago, to where, for example, Etherworks might be saying, guys, Aeon Trespass Odyssey is shipping. We're working on it right now, and it's shipping. And I have noticed a meaningful shift in the last, let's say, 4 to 6 months, maybe we'll go back that far, where these posts are going up on social media after I've got the game. And I think that's really clever, guys. I think it's really clever in that there's been a move from get excited, this is coming. Get excited, guys, this is coming. Because all that does is it drives people to go, where's my game? You said it was coming, it's not here. It's not here. Where is it? To, oh, I've either already got it. Wow, that's great. Wow, did I ever get my game early? Or if they're getting it the next day or two, to, fantastic. And I have to say, for example, recent shipments have gone out for Inventors of the South Tigris from VR. They put a post up. They said, oh, Inventors is on its way out. I basically put a yay on the Facebook comment, and they came right back saying, oh, yeah, actually, we're almost done. You should have it by now. So that sort of evidence is what I'm talking about. And I think that that's a really clever move, because the timing of your comms is as important as the comms themselves. I recently got a big bundle of stuff for the Betrayal of the Second Era, which is the recent Chip Theory. They're going to be sending out the Skyrim, is basically Skyrim Too Many Bones, sometime between now and the end of the year. And you had an opportunity in that campaign to order anything you wanted Chip Theory games. And it was all free shipping, which is mental. Or it was flat fee, $20, whatever it was. It was ridiculous. So I ordered a whole bunch of stuff. And when it arrived, I hopped on the game fan. I went, yay, guys, get excited. Your extra stuff for Betrayal of the Second Era is coming. Well, man, there were like 35 comments in the next 3 days of, well, where's my stuff? This is horrible. This campaign's being mismanaged. Why don't I have my stuff? And when is the Betrayal of the Second Era? And like the poor moderators got online going, guys, Etherworks has just started sending this stuff out. Just chill. I felt so shit, right? Because I was just there to go, hey guys, it's started. Get excited, it started. And I actually created this cavalcade of bullshit for Chip Theory. And oh man, I felt like an ass. I won't be doing it again, which is a shame, because if I was a backer and someone else went, hey, I'm in Sydney, I got my extra stuff, I'd be like, yeah, it's coming. Now, I know that could be 2 to 3 weeks still. I know things go. Companies like Etherworks and VR, they're getting shipping containers of stuff. And my stuff might be at the back of the shipping container. But, like, it's exciting. There's so much angst. And so, companies that do comms really well, Chip Theory is another one to point at. They're right in that sweet spot. Their updates are superb. They're active on the forums. Look, I'm not trying to point at anyone and say you're doing a bad job, because I get that there's a very fine line. And I don't ever get alarmed when I haven't had effective comms, but I do find it frustrating when, there's a game I backed that was supposed to fulfill last year in October. And the whole campaign went dark for like 4 months. And I went, well, probably still coming. I'm not going to name the campaign. It went dark for 4 months, 4.5 months, whatever it was. And I thought, well, at least it was only like $80. It wasn't like $500. And then they came back and went, look, guys, we're sorry we've gone dark. We had an issue. We had a major issue with shipping. We had a major, major issue in that, they had some huge challenges that, a 4 weekly check-in to go, look, guys, we're having challenges. We are supremely confident we're getting through them. Here's some snaps of your stuff. I think would have alleviated that. I get it's a double-edged sword then of people going, well, where's my stuff? And I'm not a master communicator. I am an ace at playing with myself, solo gaming, of course. But I do know that this is something that, as a gamer and as a backer, I do find it challenging when comms are not managed well. Next one I want to pick on, and this is deeply personal, right? This is deeply personal, so take this with a grain of salt, but social deduction games, like, Just no. Seriously, no. Blood on the Clock Tower is not a game. It's just a bunch of wandering around the room with some vague questions about, who are you? And lying to people, but not really caring if they believe you or not. Then sitting in a circle with your eyes closed, smiling like you're in a cult waiting for the morning to come. I'm not even sorry. It's not. You want to play a social deduction game that's 20 minutes with some cards at a table or 50 minutes, okay. But if I've got an opportunity to get up and refill my drink and just maybe not make it back by the time you're playing, I'm also okay with that. No need to wait for me. I get some people love this stuff, right? 000, our secrets by the table. He loves Blood on the Clock Tower, right? He loves Blood on the Clock Tower. We went to PlayCon this year, and I don't know how many sessions of Blood on the Clock Tower he sat in on. But then he also loves deduction. He also loves Turing Machine. So go figure, right? Like, we're still friends, so that's a thing. Yeah. So social deduction games, no, thank you. I don't own any social deduction games. I will likely not own social deduction games. If you buy me one for my birthday or Christmas, I will delete you from my phone. Don't even. I want to pick on solo modes that suck. All right, we haven't got much longer. I know it's a long episode, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. This is, as I said, it's all about me, listening to me. Solo modes that suck. I play a lot of solo games, which you know. Everyone knows that. Okay. So, look, here, a couple I'll name off the top. Carnegie. Carnegie's a great game. And the solo mode is functional, but it's not great. You've got these cards that you're laying out and you're dropping cards in, and you've got to spend more time working out what the hell you're supposed to do. So, Bitoku. Bitoku is a David Turksey solo mode. Bitoku has a full page, and I mean full page, basically flow chart of if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, then this. The learning curve is rough as, it's kind of like Imperium Classic, Imperium Horizons. Imperium's a great game. And hand on heart, it's a great solo game because playing multiplayer, you're still playing solo. But every single faction, every single group in that game, the whatever they happen to be, they have their own solo rules. So unless you're playing against the same faction, it's easy to internalize if you play a lot, but you have to really want to play Imperium solo, right? It's fine once you work them out, but when you're playing against no one, where they've just gone, yeah, we've made a game. It has a solo mode. Solo mode's called Beat Your Own Score. Go fuck yourself, okay? Beat Your Own Score is not a solo mode. That's just so we could put a 1 to 4 on the box. Beat Your Own Score. Play the game. Just play it and check your score and then try and do better. There is no impetus. There's no tension. You're just going through the motions to get to the end and you go, well, that was a thing. Like, Revive. I love Revive. I can't get to the table often enough. My friends love Revive. They like Revive. I'll say they like Revive. They like Revive enough to play it. I can't get to the table enough. I love Revive. The solo is a beat your own score. And I cannot get excited about getting 57 instead of 54 at the end of a game of Revive. I just can't. Timed solos. The out-of-the-box Arc Nova solo is, when I say timed, I think you've got 24 turns or whatever the case is. Or Terraforming Mars, where you have a set number of generations and you have to terraform before the end of that generation. It is just, I get it's an efficiency puzzle. I get it. But once you've cracked it, with the Terraforming Mars out-of-the-box solo, once you've cracked it, I sat down one night and I played Terraforming Mars solo, I think 5 times in a row. And I really enjoyed it. It wasn't a beat your own score. It was a get to a threshold before the time runs out. Once you've cracked how to do that, the solo game's over, though. Right? It's the same for Arc Nova's out of the box solo. It took me 12 or 13 goes to beat the solo in Arc Nova, and now I can do it every time because it's formulaic, in your actions. I have to confess, I have the new solo mode. I got the new solo mode for Terraforming Mars. I am very much looking forward to it because I love Terraforming Mars. I haven't got to the table yet, but it did go with a simple efficiency puzzle, which is not, as I said, once you've cracked it, that's it. You can get rid of the game. If you can't, and this is from a solo gamer, guys, not that anyone's listening, but if you can't make a robust, functional, and interesting solo mode, then just don't. Because those of us that like playing with ourselves will appreciate your self-awareness. If a game says, look, this game, we're not going to make a solo mode because we respect your time enough to not waste it with something B grade. And just because you can make a solo mode for a game doesn't mean you should. You know, you want to look at solo modes that are go play Anachrony. The solo mode on Anachrony, it is an unmitigated triumph, right? The games that play well solo are the games that you don't have to change. You play Spirit Island, you play it solo. It's almost unparalleled in its quality for solo play, but there's no change in the game. And as a solo gamer, I love when a game comes with a solo mode. I don't like when it's something that there's either no effort in, or when I say no effort, I'm not saying you haven't made the effort. I'm not saying designers, developers haven't made the effort. I'm saying the effort has not paid dividends. Okay, so let's be really clear. And I'm talking about beat your own score or timed games. It's not a solo game because it absolutely does not represent the game and the gameplay in any way, shape, or form. So just don't bother. And so the last one on the angry episode, this is a special mention from me personally. And again, I don't set out in the morning ever to shit on anyone's output. Okay, so let's just couch this to say this is not for me. Special mention today rounds out the Voices in My Head segment with a special mention to Fortune and Glory. Fortune and Glory is a pulp punish, right? But you can just go jump into Mount Doom, right? You want card art that looks like a year 8 school musical? Fortune and Glory has got your back. You want gameplay that has you looking for a way out? Oh, how do I kill myself in this game without making it too obvious? Maybe I could suggest a Calico Marathon. And resources, you have 2. Guess what they are? Fortune and Glory. They're different colored tokens. There's a blue token and a yellow token. This is tagged as Fortune and Glory, the cliffhanger game. Here's a cliffhanger. Will I have to play the next round? Or can I fake a heart attack and be taken away in an ambulance? Just no. No. Those of you that love Fortune and Glory, I'm so happy for you. Honestly, I'm so happy. If Fortune and Glory comes out on the table, I will literally pick up my keys and go. I'm not playing Fortune. I won't. I will watch. I will watch, and I will gleefully watch everyone else play for the 3.5 hours or whatever it takes to lurch your way through that game. Some of the guys in my group, I really enjoy Fortune and Glory. I would rather do anything else. Honestly, I mean anything. Anyway, that's all the complaining this one old mofo is going to do. Next week, it will be back to unicorns and rainbows and unbridled positivity here on OMC. Now into my favorite part of the show, where we here, and by we, I mean me, give someone the clap. Given everything we've gone through today, this clap is going to Dized. Dized to save me from literally putting Tiny Epic Dungeons in the garbage. Dized has guided tutorials for, I want to say there's got to be 200 games in there, guys. It's not a digital rulebook. It's a step-by-step guided tutorial. Yeah, it's available on all the regular formats, iOS and Android. And it's Dized, if you don't mind a couple of ads, it's free. So if you're struggling with a game, for whatever reason, check Dized, because there are hundreds of games in Dized. And very effective. It's a very effective way to learn games. I love Dized. If I'm ever struggling, it's the first place I looked. Dized, you get the clap this week. You little legend. I hope the itching subsides immediately. And that concludes this week's overview of all the rage that was. You can reach us on all the socials. Find us on Facebook by searching One Man Clapping. Email onemanclapping with a W, that's WON manclapping @gmail.com, as in I've won all the games. You can find us on Instagram with the number one man clapping. And you can join the One Man Clapping Guild on BGG. Subscribe to Guild 4426 if you like. It's a guild that has absolutely nothing in it. And I keep saying one day it will, and one day it will. I'll say it again. But for now, if you want to be one of the first and be there when all the news drops and we do our first big worldwide giveaways sometime in 2029, get on it. Thank you as always for your time. OMC, as of today, has been downloaded in 13 countries worldwide, which means this little podcast is ahead of COVID on the global infection curve. Soon the worldwide powers will be gathering together in sealed rooms and hushed voices to discuss how to stop the march of the one man. This episode was brought to you by Panadol and Ibuprofen, the breakfast cereal of champions, and the only thing that has got me through the last week. Until next time, get your game on, even if you've got to play with yourself. And remember, if you're ever compared to a pandemic, it's a compliment. Peace out, mofos.
Locked in the bunker, shadows shake. One man clapping secrets awake. Board games living, dice they break. Echoes pound and hearts they quake. In the bunker, board games rolling. One man clapping, stories growing. Hard rock thunder, speakers blowing. Clapping loud.
Look at me, sitting in a chair, fucking rock star. Sitting upright, oh yeah.